obviously mammoth task ahead of us. Not going to be easy. Watching Stellies again last night against Pirates. They're not an easy team to break down. Defensively, they're quite organised, quite structured, and obviously they're very, very dangerous on the counter-attack. We find ourselves in this situation by giving away 2 silly goals away from home. But now at home, we need to try and rectify those mistakes. Be positive. Go with a positive mentality into the game. Know that we have everything to gain as long as we can get ourselves back into the game nice and early, and possibly try and turn that result around. But we're probably going to have to play the best football we've played this season. I think obviously our game against Orbit was a lot better than what we did against Stellies. So if we can replicate what we achieved against Orbit, but raise our level even higher, then we stand a chance to turn the result around in our favour.
Thank you, Coach. I'll take the first question from the floor. Okay, let's go to Eswatini News. Benjamin Nyirenda.
Coach, as what one has said, is Benjamin Nyirenda, Eswatini News. And Coach, at playing at home, you came from 2-0 down against the Galaxy and won 3-2. You have done very well at home this season. With Stellenbosch coming with a 2-0 lead, what do you do? Do you say, let's go all out and you leave the back door open? Or how is the approach of the game? Do you want to just take it on from the start, the first whistle until the last?
Yeah, obviously I try and treat it almost like this is the second half of the game and you tunnel down exactly what happened against TS Galaxy. So what becomes important, obviously we have to take more risk in attack. We have to be a lot braver on the ball. We have to be more assertive in attack. But you mustn't be stupid. You've got to be clever. You know they're going to look to try and hit you on the break and on the counter attack. Your work ethic has to be really, really high. Your concentration levels has to be very, very high. But you need to be positive to be able to go out there and obviously look to try and get that early goal. As I said, 2-1 lead is never a comfortable position for the team that finds itself in that 2-1 lead position. So as I said, if we can get an early goal, that'll put a lot of pressure on them. And obviously it will motivate us even more to want to go and get the equalizer.
Coach, we'll move on to the next questions. Sinjarulo.
Coach, I'm Jamil from U34. What will a good cup run do for this team that has been stable and growing in the past couple of seasons and even been to a cup final, in terms of giving something to show for where the club comes from, where they head, where they go?
Yeah, I think it's massive. It was an objective that we set ourselves at the beginning of the season to try and go all the way, get to MTN8 final. So obviously the players understand the importance of trying to turn the results around. Tomorrow for a club like Sekhukhune to actually win a cup, that will obviously just add history to what the club has already achieved over the past 4 or 5 seasons. I think since I've been here, we've broken a number of records and hopefully we can continue doing that. So that is the objective.
Okay, let's go to Leonard. He's from Italy, it seems. He's representing Italy.
Not quite. Leonard Soms, ESPN Africa. Coach, Steve Barker, he's had a little bit of a tough start to the league season with Stellenbosch. Still delivered a masterclass in the first leg. From your experiences throughout your career, do you think that it's easier as a coach when you're in a tough run to set up a team knowing that you're in a position like Steve and your club really trusts you, as opposed to if you're not really sure about it?
Yeah, I think Steve is at, 8 years now that he's been at Stellies, and you can see the growth that has happened at that club. The understanding, the culture, the discipline. Let's not forget he's an ex-military man. And I think, the success of the club has come from the club being patient with him. I remember his first couple of seasons were difficult seasons, and possibly at any other club in South Africa, there was the likenesses they would have moved him on. But they stuck with him, and I think they're reaping the rewards of that. And what Stellies has achieved over the past 2-3 seasons is quite exceptional, and a lot of the credit needs to go to him and his technical team.
Okay, Coach, let's go to you a little bit.
Coach, you're the coach of Youth Africa. Coach, what have you learned from the first day experience in Stellenbosch? How does that inform the way that you'll go about the game this coming weekend?
I think it's more than just that first game. I think since I was at Cape Town City, I've never beaten Stellies. So I've been learning a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. Stellies, as I said before, they're a team that is built for the counter-attack. They're a team that waits for the mistakes that the opposition make, and they're extremely dangerous on the counter-attacks. And trying to stop that, prevent that, is not an easy task. But I think what tends to happen a lot of times, you try and be brave on the ball, in attack, and creating the opportunities, you're making the mistakes. And what we need to try and do is ensure that we don't make those mistakes. They have players that defensively will cheat, and that's what ends up hurting you on the counter-attack. So if they have players that are cheating, you've got to make sure that you punish them. But, us as coaches, you will always hear us after a game talking about decision making every time we do a press conference, and that's very true. A lot of the decision making in that final third is poor in our league, in my opinion. Hence, we don't have goal scorers scoring more than 20 goals a season. And it's not only the goal scorers, it's actually the providers, the assists, the amount of assists that we have in South Africa. We were, for the first time, I think, Keletso got 3 assists. And I think that's, for us as a club, that's the first time that's happened. And we managed to score 3 goals. So we were better in the final third in this last game. Now, can we do that against Stellies? That's what becomes important. Is that creation in that final third? Can we turn it into goals?
Okay, Coach, I've got hands. I've noted the 2. Let's go to the left-hand side. Lorenz.
Coach, at Cape Town City, you kind of always manage with a smaller squad, like senior players and a lot of youngsters pushing into the first team. You come to Sekhukhune, it's a much bigger squad, way more players. Has it tested your management a little bit more beyond the football field? That to handle unsettled players, certain players obviously complaining, knocking on the door on game time, things like that.
I think it's important to note that it's not only at Cape Town City or at Sekhukhune, let me rather say that, where I've had to work with bigger squads. At Pirates, I had to work with bigger squads. Chipper, Maritzburg, when I arrived, they had 36 players. It becomes, in terms of managing a big squad, becomes extremely difficult. I think we've reduced the numbers at the club. So we have a manageable group currently. Everybody wants to play, and I don't think that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. I think this season we've strengthened the squad in all areas, be it experienced players, and we brought in quite a few of the younger players, and knowing that everybody's going to get an opportunity. This month, it's 8 games in the space of a month, and there's been fatigue, and I've had to make rotations in terms of players and game time. 𝐭𝐸𝐬𝐬 is 1 game away from suspension. He's already got 3 yellows. So I explained to players that, you know, everybody's going to get an opportunity, but it's about grabbing your opportunity when it comes. Because if a player comes into a starting 11 and does well, because he's replaced somebody else who did well, well, that person's going to have to wait for his opportunity again. You know, so, you know, I think that becomes extremely important. But I always say that in reality, if you look at clubs around the world, be it Liverpool, be it Man City, be it whoever, you know, you go look at the end of season reports and you'll see that maximum number is 17 players have been used throughout the season. And even those English clubs, they'll carry 28 players. So there are obviously 11 players that didn't get any game time, you know. So one of the hardest jobs for a coach is obviously that management side, trying to keep everybody happy.
Thank you, Coach. Next up, are you sorted? Let's go to the man from Germany.
I'm from Molly, my good sir. Coach, Masket from Power FM. My question is a bit of a follow-up to Njabulo's question, because I look at the table itself, the PSL table. I think only 7 teams have been in the league for over, I think, 10 years, which means we have so many new entrants all the time, either winning, you know, the promotion or buying a status. And I look at it as creating maybe pressure on teams like yourselves and your Stellies to grow quicker, which means no time for you guys to actually work on your plans. You must grow quicker. Is that how you see it? You know, the selling of teams, the losing of statuses? Because then there's the Pirates, Sundowns, Chiefs who have been there, Golden Arrows as being maybe one of them. But then there's teams like yourself who have to push Sundowns, Chiefs, Pirates, and so on. And then in the process, forcing you guys to grow quicker. Is that, you know, does it affect that way? And also on Keletso Makgalwa, what had to change, Coach? Because it's been really good last season. You know, people speaking of him, player of the season nominations and so on. What has been that big change that took him from not making it at Sundowns, for example, going to Uppington, working back into the PSL, and now being, you know, one of the best?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the changes, clubs coming and clubs going, I think that's just part of the franchise system that we have here in South Africa in terms of our league. The 16 clubs that play in the PSL, whether they just got promoted or not, objective is to finish in the top 8, this competition. So there's immediate pressure put on the coaches and players to achieve that goal, finishing in the top 8. You know, so the demand and expectations are very, very high. But it's not only happening in South Africa. We're seeing it actually around the world now. Expectations are a lot higher. English Premier League, you look there now. You know, in the past, you might have thought it was United, Arsenal, Liverpool, but then along came the Chelseas and the Man Cities, and that group has grown in terms of how many clubs will compete, obviously, for the league. So the demand that has been put, obviously, on the coaches for an immediate response is a lot higher. So there's a lot more pressure that's put on the coaches and obviously also on the players. I think that answers your question. That's my opinion. Keletso, he had a very, very good season. I actually worked with Keletso a little bit at Maritzburg when I joined. Keletso was there. and I sent him back to Sundowns. And I think, yeah, we all identified that he's a talented player with natural talent, natural ability. And I think he needed to go through a learning phase. And probably going, like you said, to Uppington was a good thing for him, to make him grounded. And I think last season he had a great season. And obviously a lot of speculation come the end of the season of where his future lied. A lot of it was through the media. And I think it affected him at the beginning of the season. He didn't perform well at all pre-season. In the games that we played, the friendlies, he didn't perform well the first 2 matches. In fact, the first 3 matches he wasn't great. Needed to sit him down. We were speaking about managing a player, so that was my task, managing him, making him aware that he is a Sekhukhune United player, and if a right offer came, then that offer would be accepted. But if it's not the right offer, then he will continue to be a Sekhukhune player. So he needed to understand that, and I think gradually he's come to recognize that the opportunity is still there, it will come again. Can he repeat what he done last season, this season? Then people might take him more serious. And I had to sit with him and show him that, understand something, you've become a target. When you're successful, people will start targeting you and they'll want to bring you down. Players now study you, they know what you do. Teams have studied you. We showed him clips in the first 2-3 games. Every time he got the ball, he had 2-3 players around him, pressing him, because they know that he's a threat. So he has to diversify his game. He cannot be the same player. He has to add elements to his game to become a better player. So, and I gave in my last press conference the example of Salah. Salah does the same thing week in, week out. He scores goals, he creates assists, teams study him, but he still finds ways to still create those goals and those assists. And in the first 3 games, he was being closed down and he wasn't finding alternatives. So I had to try and help him in terms of him understanding how he could rectify his game to become more effective.
Thank you, Coach. We are now wrapping up. Keletso is sorted. Okay, let's go to Minentle. I think that will be our last one.
Coach, you talked about there's a couple of records you've already achieved since you arrived. One thing that is evidence, there seems to be a very strong fighting spirit within your team, and it's going to be needed more than ever this coming weekend. What would you say has been the secret, or what's been the ingredient that you've implemented within the players that they're able to show this fighting spirit? You think about the game at TS Galaxy, the way they came back. You talked about after the game against Pirates, you told them to be patient, their chances will come, and they did come. What has been the ingredient that you've installed that they will require for this weekend more than ever?
I think, like I said, what's happened at Stellies, creating that club culture, I think very, very important. But at the same time, giving the players the responsibility and them obviously taking ownership. Those are two key factors for me. It's what do you want? Do you want a coach-centered team, or do you want a player-centered team? That was what I asked the players. Because I can be a dictator if you want me to be a dictator, or I can be a leader. So you choose, which do you want, dictator or leader? And I think the players obviously chose leader. And they've taken that ownership. They've created a culture within the team. And for that reason, we see what we see right now, the character, the discipline within the team, and obviously also the desire and the willingness to obviously sacrifice, because it's been a tough month, you know. I can explain, we play against Stellies in Cape Town. We're supposed to leave the hotel at 5 in the morning to catch a flight. Bus breaks down. Don't make the flight. Players sit at the airport, only leave at 2:45 on the Sunday. I cancel the training Monday. Tuesday we play. Now, players could respond negatively to what happened there, but they responded positively. So, and these are things that happened. We don't blame anyone for what happened, but that can affect the mindset of a player. So the players showed great character against Orbit, and that wasn't going to be an easy game. It was going to be a very, very difficult game. But we dominated for the 90 minutes, and we probably deserved to score more goals than what we did against them. And all of that actually comes from, like I said, creating that culture, creating that ownership and leadership, that they take that responsibility, not only me.
All right, Coach, thank you so much. We'll end it here. All the best for Saturday.
Thank you, sir.